I think we are live.
What is that sound?
Legs, boys, easy top.
That wonderful track, Submotile, foreshadowing. Hello, everyone. This is W. Welcome 2023, January 7th, Saturday. Happy New Year. And we're here with Daniela and Michael Farren from the band Submotile. And today is very special because we're launching 2023 with this special event. We're going to have a listening party. We're going to do a Q&A. We're going to learn more about some records that have inspired these two. And we're going to have a giveaway, a test pressing giveaway. So stick around, grab favorite cup of drink, coffee, beer, wine, and enjoy. Daniela and Michael, how are you doing?
Very well.
Great.
Very well, thanks.
How are you?
I'm doing well. Happy New Year.
And happy belated birthday. Was yesterday your birthday, wasn't it?
Well, thank you. Let's do a little toast because I'm 21 yesterday.
Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you so much. And cheers to everyone. We've got some people here in the chat box. If you wouldn't mind letting us know where you're tuning in from, that would be awesome. Again, my name is W. I host this online Facebook event called High Arts on the Edge. And we got John here, John Emsley. Nice to see you. So let me give you a little bit of background how I came to learn about your fantastic album, One Final Summit Before the Fall. And then we're going to listen to the album in its entirety. And then we'll do a short Q&A and then whatever else follows. Chris Gardner's here. Hello, Chris. Vinka's. Oh, Vinka, happy birthday to you too, Vinka.
Oh, happy birthday, Vinka.
Yes. Now, I don't know if you know about Vinka's Bandcamp status, but she's pretty high up there. She's very, 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 very loyal. And I'd like everyone here. We have Neil here. Neil. And
no way.
Nice to see the gang here. A lot of DKFMers. This is great.
Neil Bergdahl.
Yes, Neil Bergdahl. That's correct.
Hi,
Neil.
So I first learned about your music through DKFM, no lie there. And I think it might have been Vinka or Alex D dropped a song and I listened to it and I was like, Heather's here. And I didn't know much about you two. Honestly, I thought there was like a 5-piece band. And so when I learned, did all the homework research and we met online, it was really refreshing. Just two. And this album, as you know, has received a lot of critical praise, deservedly so. So I want to know, before we start listening to the album, now that you've been separated from the release date, what kind of comments have you been receiving? How does it feel now that it's been hatched out into the world? Anything you want to share, go for it.
I think there was a good feedback we received from the album, and I'd say we were a bit unsure with this one. We were a bit afraid of what would be the impact, right? Because this album we both felt was a tiny bit different from the previous one, in a sense that the one, Sonic Day Codas, was more a kind of aligned to a certain sound, while this one, each track of the album was a little bit different. We wanted to give a mix of different kind of tracks, the noisy one, the post-rock one, the shoegaze one, the popish one. So each song was a bit different, and we weren't sure that would be received, the same way. So we were a bit, either we thought either these people like it or they hate it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I had this.
No haters, no haters.
Like I've said this before, like, we're just hugely grateful for anyone to kind of
Yeah, exactly.
listen to what we do. Like we put out our first album maybe 4 years ago or something, and it's terrible. Like it's really bad. There's
Well, in terms of production, yeah, it's pretty bad.
Yeah.
I still love the songs, but in terms of we didn't really know what we were doing.
No, and it was so I think we kind of benefited a little bit from low expectations. So when we put out our second record in 2021, we'd moved into this house that we're in now, and just basically have more space. We have a dedicated studio to kind of work on what we did, and I kind of spent a bit of time trying to learn how to mix properly. So I think when we did that one, we did a slightly better idea. Which is still a pretty low bar, but we kind of knew what we were doing better than we did with the first one. And it seemed that people kind of seemed to like that one, which was for us was just
it was amazing. Yeah,
fantastic.
it was really amazing. We were overwhelmed, to be honest. I was overwhelmed by the the response of people, and so this one was a bit. You kind of have to give people at least the same level of interest, and say, I don't know.
Well, I suppose one of the kind of things that we've always had is that there's no point in putting out something unless it's kind of an improvement or maybe more interesting than your previous. Otherwise, what's the point? Like you can't just keep putting out the same record. So this one we had kind of grandiose notions of doing this massive like double album, kind of a concept kind of a thing, and that concept was sort of loosely based around life and death in the mountains. I was a mountaineer years ago, and like I was fortunate enough to kind of travel the world doing, and I took photos, and what we were going to do was like a record that kind of like the artwork we were gonna use photos that I had taken and try and have a kind of base camp to summit and back down again kind of a concept, and it didn't happen in the end. I think we did do something like 16 songs, but like about maybe 6 of them were not particularly great, so we ended up kind of taking the 9, and we weren't sure if they worked together well. It seemed, because there's some kind of stuff on it that's maybe like you go from Drop to Eternity, which is almost kind of a poppy thing, into Ataraxia, which is a complete like noise fest. And I know, just as a music fan, sometimes when you're listening to albums and there's a big jarring change between songs, it's a bit off-putting. And I think that we were worried that might be something. And we were kind of worried as well sending it over to Simon Scott for mastering. Like with Sonic Dakotas, it was more of a boombastic, you start off at 100 miles an hour, kind of keep that pace up. There wasn't much subtlety to it. I think this one had a bit more subtlety, and we weren't sure if it was going to be really difficult for him to kind of tie it all together. I think it probably was quite difficult for him, but I think he did a great job in the end. But we were really like, the way that it's basically, if anyone likes it, that for us is,
well,
it's a great thing.
Well, you've developed a problem here. I don't think people like it. I think they fucking love it. I think people have been really enjoying this, and it's an album that, and we'll talk more about this and getting Simon involved, and for people that aren't familiar with Simon's work, so all that stuff. So Vinka even says, Colin says hi from Scotland. Heather says hello. Vinka says different, yes, even deeper emotionally, more profound. Heather says so modest. Okay, so I'm getting all ready here. So here's what we're going to do. For those of you that have never done a album listening party,
That would
this
be
is
us.
very good.
The first time.
It's pretty easy, and so this is how it's going to work. I'm going to play the music via the record. People at home, you can cue it up through Bandcamp. You can cue it up on your record player. You can cue it up on Spotify. However you want to play it at home. You too can play it however you want. You just want to make sure your audio is off so we don't hear it on our end. And then at home, for everyone listening, tracking along, I will put the song titles in the chat box. And while you're listening to the album at home, everyone, feel free to type your comments. And Daniela and Michael will try to chime in with their as they type too. I think the album's 50 minutes? 50 minutes?
46, I think. Yeah.
Okay, 46 minutes. And for me, I'll have to flip over the vinyl, but that won't take very long. So that's really it. And so enjoy. And then after the listening experience, we'll do our 15, 20-minute Q&A. We'll do the test pressing giveaway. And then you've got some goodies to share. Some of your... Vinka says DKFM shirt represent. Nice.
Always.
Yeah, DKFM has just been so huge in promoting so much music.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But here's the thing I love that I have not had a bad experience with anybody that is part of DKFM.
Mm-hmm.
I feel it's a very tight-knit community that not only support the artist, but support, so if you've never heard a band, they don't put you down for never hearing this band.
Mm-hmm.
There's no elitism or anything like that. So it's been a wonderful community for me to discover some great friends and great music. So thank you to DKFM. Okay, so I'm gonna just get over to my turntable. While I'm doing that, getting it all queued up, at home, you get one final summit before the fall queued up. And then when I say hit it, you're gonna hit play, and then we'll start with From First Light.
We'll go on mute.
All right. Here we go. Hit it.
glass. What about you, the rubbish?
Who's the only one?
This song is tremendous. Tremendous. Foreshadowing. Turn it up. Bother your neighbors. Get the police over to your house. Here we go. Blood Loss. For those of you tuning in, thank you. Listen to High Arts on the Edge. Submotile. Great album. Actually, fantastic. Hope and sound. Last track, Farewell Aquarius. And we thank you. No, we thank you. Turn it up. Whoa. Whoa. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I need all of you to grab this right now. Album. Send it as a gift to somebody. That was a wonderful listening experience.
Thank you.
Right.
How did that feel?
Better, like better than I was expecting, because we've heard it 500 times, and I was kind of quite happy to not hear it again for quite some time, because there's a bit of a when you're mixing something, you've got to listen to it ad nauseum. So even before it comes out, even before it's sent to mastering, you're kind of sick of it. But I think enough time has passed now for it to be kind of.
Yeah. No, I still enjoy, listening to it. I'm back on listening. This experience was great.
Yeah, it's not nice to it's lovely to see comments. Apologies if we missed any, because Facebook seems to kind of order it in a bit of a randomized nature. So in case we didn't reply to a question, apologies. We weren't kind of seeing them in any logical order, because Facebook just you don't know. But
algorithms.
Yeah, I mean it's nice. When I listen to I can't listen to our first one, but even when I listen to Sonic Day Codas, I kind of hear things that I could have done differently or mixed a bit better, or mistakes in guitar parts and stuff. And this one, it's probably a bit more. There's less of that.
I think I'll see it again.
Vinka, you want to hear it again? Yeah, I know, it's good stuff. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about, I want to go back before this album, because it was actually raised inside the chat box. If you wouldn't mind just sharing how you two met, and then how it's really started to form as a band.
Do you want me to tell this one?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
This story doesn't make me look particularly brilliant, but we met at a friend's wedding in 2011 in Bari, in Italy,
Yeah.
where Daniela is from. Me being Irish, there's a propensity for Irish people when they go abroad to get kind of shit-faced, and I was no exception to that. So it was like a 4-day trip.
Yeah.
So my first night, I ended up in a lock-in in some pub in Bari, and I never did well with vodka. And these guys at one point gave me a shot of vodka, and when I say shot, it was more like a gallon. They finished a bottle, and I kind of, all right, thanks. They go, no, wait, and they open another one and fill it up. So
yeah,
the night that kind of set the tone for the night. So all I had to do at this point, like this was at about 4 a.m. All I had to do was leave this bar and walk 200 meters up to the hotel and pass out. But instead of doing that, I got into a taxi, and I think I said something like airport. So the taxi driver takes one look at me and goes, Jesus Christ. And he starts driving to the airport, and we get about 20 kilometers outside the city, and we're basically in industrial wasteland. And I decided that this would be a great place to get out. So I gave the taxi driver all my money and said, thank you. And basically ended up walking around a place at like 5 a.m. in Italy where the mafia do executions.
There's no mafia in Italy. Why did they say that?
So I heard. But anyway, the reason I tell you this is because 2 days later.
Because despite this,
So at a wedding that Daniela and I were at, I was still completely hungover from this odyssey of a night. And we were at the same table. And I think Daniela mistakenly thought that I was like
No, he ignored me for the whole time. Like he was next to me and he ignored me. And that's exactly the right strategy because, for an Italian woman, to be ignored like that when usually we are harassed by, all the all
Yeah.
the men in Italy, 24 hours. So it got my attention basically.
Yeah.
That's how he got my attention.
So there was a false perception that I was kind of mysterious, but it was just I was so hungover that I had steam coming out of my ears still, like 2 days later. Anyway, we met, fell in love, got married 2015.
Well, I mean, yeah, but we lived apart for a few years.
Daniela lived in
So
Manchester.
I lived in Manchester and he was in Dublin, but still, because I got a job in Manchester, so I was we were kind of commuting for a few years, over the weekend. Then got married, but then I think the music came about when we were both in Dublin. So it was funny enough because I think we never talked about our past, so I didn't know. I mean, well, of course I knew that he was playing, in when he was young in a band, but because we were living in a small apartment, so he put all his equipment in storage, so there was nothing around, in the where we lived. Then of course we had a child, so there was a storage problem, so we couldn't really
we were kind of paying a lot of money for this storage, and when you have a kid, you kind of reevaluate stuff. So I started selling.
So he decided, I decided to sell, some of the equipment, and but one day he was selling an amp, like he brought out of the storage the box amp, and which I thought was beautiful. And
it's the Vox AC30 amp, so it's like used by the Beatles, and it's that kind of iconic. Yeah. It has a very distinctive sound. It's famously, the Edge, his entire guitar sound is from the Vox AC30. But yeah, Daniela said to me, "Why are you selling that?"
I didn't want him to sell it. So then that was the start of it, because then he started kind of playing again.
Yeah,
the guitar.
I plugged it in and I was like, Jesus, that sounds really nice. I kind of forgotten how, because it had been in storage for about a decade at this point. And kind of started noodling, like playing chords again. And one day Daniela began singing improvised, like a counter melody. And I thought, hang on a second, there's something, wow, that was great. Can we record that kind of thing? And I think at that point I was doing ambient stuff, just kind of dipping my toes back into recording, and we basically did our first EP then. Daniela sang that song. It's called Signs of My Melody, which is the third track off our first EP.
That was the first song that we put together, really.
Yeah, and that was how we'd been together for 8 years at that point.
Be careful what you say.
But yeah, I mean, and that was like, because I talked about this before, with Neil Bergdahl, that I kind of got I got a bit. I'd never envisioned doing music again, because I kind of finished it in like 2008 in quite a bitter kind of way. Yeah, it had become incredibly frustrating, and I could never get anywhere close to what sounds that I had in my head. And I was playing in a band that were kind of Vervish, that kind of thing, but it just wasn't the kind of stuff I was particularly interested in. When I say Verve, I mean more the Britpop era of Verve rather than the good one, the early one. So I kind of never really, I kind of thought that's it. And I was 32, I think, at the time, so I kind of thought, I'll never probably do this again. So it was a complete lovely chain of events, really, um, that kind of brought us A, together, and B, recording stuff together. And like it works, but you've the usual husband and wife, did you bring the bins out? You forgot to bring the bins out again. Also, that snare drum sounds like complete shit, in that mix. So it brings a new dimension into.
So Daniela, I have to ask you. So tell us about your upbringing with music. Did music play a big part in your household?
Yeah, I'm Italian from the deep south of Italy, sorry, and the music, at least in my family, was always really a massive way of was part of our culture, really. So I can't remember one day where there wasn't music present, and it was more classical music. So when I was very young, there was a piano in my parents' house, and I started playing piano when I was, I think, 10 years old, and I got, I'm piano trained, but not only the playing, but also the theory, music theory. My auntie, she had a diploma, in piano, and my grandparents would bring me to. I was like 10, 11 already, and they would bring me to the opera, and every month. So for me, music has always been, but more the classical kind of music.
There's Vink is asking a question. What genre of classical do you like best?
So my favorite is Liszt. I love him, and it's a bit complex. Or Chopin is also the other one that I love. But I listen to all of them, like Beethoven. I mean, the most, but there's also some contemporary stuff that I actually really like. Classical music. There's Ludovico Einaudi that I absolutely love. And yeah, Chopin. She loves Chopin. Yeah, Chopin is pretty amazing. But I was always then in this circle, and then I think growing up, well, then I started singing in a church, in a choir in a church. That's something I went on for a few years, and then I kind of stopped playing a bit the piano, kept singing in the church, and but music was always like the first thing that I would do. I still remember, when my parents brought me like some of this massive, hi-fi like radio, and the first thing I would do in the morning is just turn it on. Like the radio for me, it's um, it's amazing. Like I love listening to radio. I love, for example, that's why I love DKFM. And then what happened? Like, and I also, funny enough, on top of actually singing, then I stopped singing for a bit. In secondary school, I started writing. So I started writing. I started falling in love with writing, and what I was doing, I was writing for songs for my friend's band. So that's another evolution, what happened to me in the music. But there's always been music in my life. So when you know with him, when we met, it was great to actually to put something, um, kind of to create something together. So you put something in motion, and it's nice that now that we have. We kind of have this way of doing things where it's very complementary. Like when we put something together, um, we go like so far in the same direction, in the sense that we kind of want to evolve from one album to the next one. We have similar idea, which is something that it's nice. It's not very, it's not taken for granted. Someday you can come up and say, I want to do, I don't know, hip hop, and I'm gonna say bye.
So Daniela, so with the love for classical music, did you ever branch out to other genres, styles of music, like
Yeah,
doing?
I was kind of much older, but I started getting into alternative music, indie music, and I was always, surrounded by musicians. So I was in my hometown. There is actually great vibe, for this kind of alternative music. So I was always at gigs, always, of listening to. Well, I suppose, you know, there were more kind. My friends were more in Franz Ferdinand kind of style. But then I discovered so many like Blonde Red, for example, and I loved that sound. And I started listening more and more to that kind of style. And that
No, not Be Forest Finker, Blonde Redhead.
Blonde Red. I love Be Forest, by the way.
Yeah, actually, I think probably because of you, Vinker. I think I might have seen you posting
I love Be Forest. Yeah.
posting about them on DKFM, and yeah, we have we have all their albums now. Actually,
Yeah.
the three of them. They're fantastic.
As
Sorry,
well as Rev as well.
Digress there.
No.
Yeah, sorry.
No, so okay, and then Michael, for you growing up, tell us a little about your introduction to music.
Back in the 40s, yes. Well, the Great War had just ended. No, yeah. It's strange. I was always really into music, but I don't know where it came from. My dad was big into classical. I wasn't. Like I remember my first record, my mum brought me to the record shop to buy the Human League's "Don't You Want Me, Baby," which I think I was probably 5 at the time. And then I remember kind of when I was about 7 or 8 getting like really into U2, and like Larry Mullen Jr. was I realized this makes me look really uncool, but anyway. Larry was like my hero. I wanted to be a drummer. But I have an older sister, Neve, who was in college at the time, and like Neve had great taste. She had a Sonic Youth record, Sister, which I remember hearing the opening song of that, Schizophrenia, which is still one of my favorite all-time songs. It has that wonderful mixture of melody and noise and like hidden beauty. And I now understand that's the kind of thing I love in music, but when I was 12, I didn't quite get that. But that kind of cracked the door open a bit. Dinosaur Jr.'s Freak Scene, I remember hearing that in '89, I think. And that song blew me away. And that kind of opened the floodgates then. I got really heavily into Sonic Youth, bought every album. My sister then in '91 brought me to see them. Nirvana opened for them. This was 2 months before Nevermind came out on their European tour. I saw the Pixies that summer, and I saw Dinosaur Jr. about a month later. This was all when I was like 15, so I was kind of well on the kind of path to, I was never really going to be listening to kind of, contemporary, mainstream kind of stuff. Then later got like heavily into kind of electronic stuff. Autechre, Aphex Twin, Square Pusher, that kind of, Warp Records kind of stuff. And in the last decade, kind of heavily into ambient and post-rock, and always consistently love shoegaze, that mixture of noise and beauty. That to me is, that's what it's all about, really. I learned the guitar probably when I was around about the time that I was getting into Sonic Youth, I think probably maybe 14 or 15. Okay. I'm still terrible at it.
We love Sigur Rós, Finka. Yeah.
Sigur Rós, we saw them in Manchester in 2013 when Daniela lived in Manchester. And it was one of, I think it's in the top 5.
Yes, it was a fantastic gig. Yeah.
God, it was the same week we saw My Bloody Valentine in the Apollo.
How can you hear?
Yeah, we were quite far back. I mean, I'd seen My Bloody Valentine in '92, I think, in Dublin. And I kind of knew, what to expect. So we had the earplugs in and stuff. But with Sigur Rós,
Sigur Rós was amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of, I think that we were really quite far back. in this theater. We were like upstairs.
We were, yeah, it was a theater, it was the Olympia Theater, so it was already an amazing, venue, and we were at the back, but
Yeah, but it was so, they were so immersive and so good and so
they're just
mind blowing.
amazing, yeah.
It was like almost being on the stage with them. They were so good. Love them, absolutely loved them. And their movie Heima, I'm probably mispronouncing that, but the Icelandic for Home, that they brought out in 2007 is one of my favorite music
Yeah.
films. And it actually reminds me in a weird kind of way of Ireland a bit.
Yeah,
The landscapes in Iceland.
true.
Absolutely, yeah, loved them. We've a lot of shared. I mean, I think these days you probably listen to more noisy kind of stuff than me.
Yeah, I like
Um,
it. I like the heavy sound, noisy sound. But
yeah, but it works. It works like we have kind of complementary tastes, I think. So when we're
except for one.
Daniela doesn't like swans.
Oh,
Swans are one of my. I will die on that hill. Swans are one of my. I know they're not like shoegaze, but Michael Gira
Chira.
from Swans is one of my. He's just the guy has had such an interesting life, and like his dedication and just 100% focus. I've never seen one person command an audience as well as he did when I saw them in Dublin in 2010. That's in my top 5.
pretty intense, huh?
So, and a complete experience. And I didn't know what I was getting in for with them, and I went in without earplugs, and I'm still like,
Consequences.
yeah, they were at one point. I was like, this is Jesus. This is kind of a bit too much.
I love it. I
But he
effing
did,
love it. These are
yeah,
great narratives that we're hearing, and I, obviously we don't get to see the behind the scenes with you two making the music and putting the tracks together and all the arrangements. So with this album, I alluded to it earlier about bringing in Simon Scott from Slow Dive, and Slow Dive, as many people know, I've truly embraced.
yeah.
So how the hell did you get Simon Scott
I
to
don't know. How did we manage
work on
to
these
do?
2 albums with you?
Yeah, that is it's very surreal.
Yeah.
Really
So you
surreal.
send them, you just
Yeah.
shoot out a
So
message.
yeah, that's what we did. Like I remember I came across to his page, like the mastering, his mastering work, and I didn't know because I love Slow Dive. I love their music. I love the band, but I wasn't aware that he would do mastering, right? And then I discovered that very randomly, and I talked to Michael. I remember I said, I'd love to, I'd love to have Simon, mastering our album. But we didn't think that would be possible, to be honest with you, because we didn't know him. We didn't know anybody who know him, and so we decided basically to send an email. So we just reached out to him, and we sent a sample of the track, which was segregation.
Yeah, we sent him. We had a single out in 2020 called Segregation. It's a complete rip off of Tokyo Shoegazer. We sent him that, and he replied and said, "Oh, that's right up my alley. I'd love to work with you." And when we sent the record off to him, we didn't hear anything for like kind of a longer than expected period. Like
it was for 3 days. We were sweating there, like, oh my god,
he's not gonna like this, and
You're not sleeping well.
yeah, you're kind of. It's because like Slow Dive means so much to both of us. I mean, they were the first. Morning Rise was the first shoegaze song that I fell in love, even before My Bloody Valentine. I remember seeing Morning Rise on 120 Minutes on MTV.
Yes.
Going, what is this? This is just beautiful. Are those guitars? Are they synths? Like what? and I've always loved him. And
Yeah.
it was just surreal to be in conversation with somebody who'd been
So it was
involved.
very surreal.
But even more surreal, he got back then and said, like, thank you. He said something along the lines of, thank you for sending me, and sending me your wonderful record. And we were like, hang on, he must have mailed the wrong people. But yeah, he did such a great job with that record. Like, normally when you get something back from mastering, I found from personal experience, I might be wrong, but just this is my own experience, it sounds the same, albeit just louder. Simon had clearly put a lot of work into what he did. Like, he had kind of broken the songs down by section. So for example, the chorus of like Sunflower, he'd widen that out. And this was stuff that it really impacted the music in a great way. And it was so obvious that like this guy just didn't run it through like a preset. He actually spent a shitload of time getting this kind of right.
That was great.
Was something like that? See, this is all new for me in terms of learning.
Yeah.
When you send him something and he gets back to you,
yeah,
he's signed on to work with you.
Yeah.
Does Simon say, okay, it's going to take X amount of time for me to get through this? Like, is there a window of time, a timeline?
Yeah, like particularly with the one final summit. I think he said like he put aside 3 days or something. Was that it?
No. I think the first one he put aside a weekend.
A weekend, sorry.
So he said. So what happened is that he was going to. He had planned to go recording back with Slowdive. And so he said, look, you're right, on time. I have the weekend, I have 3 days to work on the album, and then I'll send the mastering back, and you let me know what you think. So that's what happened. So he worked very quickly on the album, and again, every time you receive an email from Simon Scott, you're like, oh God, so it's really him. But then we listened to the mastering, and I remember we were listening. I think we said already this. We were listening with different headsets, so we were in the same room listening on the headset. And after 3 songs, I think we had to stop to pause it because it was so overwhelming. The like the feeling, that what he's done, the work that he's done was so good that we both weren't expecting. We needed a pause, we just needed, okay, let's take a break and breathe a bit. And then anyway.
But that's got to be a lot of pressure on you because you're dealing with Simon Scott. And if he delivers something that you don't completely subscribe to, then you have to be honest in your delivery back to him and say,
fuck off. Yeah.
And I would hate to be that messenger.
Well, yeah, I mean.
No, I mean, I think the reason why we chose Simon to do that album, especially the first one, is also because we thought, who better than him could be really connected with our music. And we really believed that he would be really completely, he would get it, right? And thank God, that happened. We didn't really fail on that. I think the second album was a bit trickier to get because, again, every song was different. So there was a song more, shoegazy, the other one a bit popish, and it was a bit trickier. The vocals are a bit more upfront compared with the previous one. So that was a bit trickier, and we had to give him a bit of, kind of directions, right, for him. And he asks that all the time. So, he asks, what you expect, right, from this album. So that was a bit more different, more difficult probably for him. But I think, he did.
Yeah, like he did. We did have to ask for a couple of things to be tweaked, which we didn't with the first one. And you're right, it is kind of difficult to go back. Um, and truthfully, the reason that we asked for revisions was probably completely on us, maybe on me specifically, for kind of not explaining.
Yeah.
Like a song like Hope and Sound, if you process it the same way that you process something like Ataraxia, it's going to choke the vocals, which is, you know what I mean? Which is kind of not what we wanted with that song. But, he did a sterling job considering how kind of sonically, I suppose, diverse kind of the tracks are, that they don't all necessarily sound the same. So he had a very difficult task to do, and that we asked for revisions, very few of them, is a testament to just how good he is.
Okay, so he does this in 3 days. You're feeling awesome about this. Tell us some songs that were just a pain in the ass for you to put together.
Yeah,
For the last album,
there were quite a few of them were quite.
Well, Drop to Eternity.
Yeah, that was really difficult.
That was really hard to put together because I think we changed, I don't know how many times that song.
Oh Christ, yeah, it's coming back to me now. Jesus. Yeah, we did that. I think we revised that maybe 40 times.
Oh my God! Wow.
Like we changed completely the structure. Like we were never happy. I suppose we had something in our head, right, on how we wanted that song to sound, and we just couldn't put it together. And then in the end, so we were changing all the time, and then in the end we came, I don't know how, I think we were probably tired. We were like, okay. We were too tired. We couldn't even talk about the song anymore. Like we couldn't, name it. Like we were so like kind of wrecked about, this song. And I think you came up with a kind of this structure that was very different from the original.
We change the vocal melody or
We
something?
changed the vocal melody,
Yeah.
and also the fact that the vocals, they start from the start of the song, right? They jump in. That's something that we would have never, done before. That's a new thing, and I didn't think it would work, so I was against that. I was like, no, there's too much, but then actually it was his suggestion, and then actually it worked in the end,
Yeah.
So go ahead, Michael.
It just was, and on top of the kind of structural difficulties with the song, it was quite hard to mix, because it goes from, it's just an acoustic guitar and Daniela's voice at the start, into this, there's 100 guitars at the end kind of thing, and trying to tie all that together without having it sound jarring, trying to mix all that can be kind of a bit challenging, and that one, that was it took so many goes, and like you end up, you kind of start doubting yourself then. So you start thinking version 3 is better than version 36. Maybe we should go back.
It's like the Stanley Kubrick of making music, right? The amount of takes that he's so famous for.
Well, that song, Foreshadowing, as well, the central riff in that song, in the verse.
That's a fun one.
It's quite hard to play, and it's in this weird tuning. It's like EBE, BBE or something like that, and has a capo on like the 3rd fret. So it's quite an unorthodox guitar setup. But the day that I was trying to play this part, and I had the Vox amp like cranked, and it was angled towards one of the windows for some reason. I had it angled kind of facing out, I towards the window, and I kept playing this, and wasn't happy, and kept doing this thing over and over and over again. And eventually I got a take that I liked, and it must have been in the 60s at this stage. Like it had taken about an hour. And I thought, okay, grand. And then I look at my phone and it's my neighbor
Oh.
basically saying, I'm having a really fun time listening to you trying to get this guitar part right, Michael. You're such a gem. You know, shit. sorry about that. But you know, for the most part, like recording the songs is a huge amount of fun. Like I really like doing it from an engineering perspective. Like taking Daniela's vocals and kind of layering them and mixing them all together. It's something I would happily do that if anyone would pay me to do it. Like it's so rewarding. And similarly with guitars, it's just something that we absolutely love to do, and we really do kind of labor over these things. But sometimes maybe a song like "Drop to Eternity," it's maybe if you're laboring too much, it's maybe a sign that maybe you should cut the song or approach it differently. But that's what we ended up doing in the end. We just approached it differently. I think the problem was that the vocal melody was too fast. So the whole thing sounded like a mess. And I think Daniela then sang it at half speed, and that's what worked. That was the breakthrough. It was something like that anyway.
It's a small thing, but it's just, you know, it wouldn't really, we weren't happy, you know, so really, we were going around the circle, you know, we didn't know what to change and how to make it better.
Oh, hey, Frank. New Zealand. Good to see you.
Hi, Frank.
Happy New Year, dude.
I want to know, with working together, we don't need to know the real personal stuff, but tell me how this has enhanced your relationship, because you're doing work for quite a bit of time, which is feeding the relationship. It's giving its nutrients in some way. So is that challenging? How so?
Not for me.
No, I think what I can say that we have learned how to, you know, work together. Because at the beginning it wasn't easy, because he is very stubborn, and I am also very stubborn. So but also we are both very perfectionists, you know. So we really like, you know, to look at the very fine details and trying to improve them. And you know, sometimes he's Irish, so he just doesn't take criticism well, you know. So when I say something to him, you know, it's like, oh, and you know, but you know, I have the advantage that I can just leave the house, you know, just go for a walk, and it didn't happen with this album, but with the previous album, Sonic Coders. He doesn't know, but like we had a lot of arguments around one song, which was Cyanotic. Like Cyanotic was just a nightmare, and there was the vocal. No, what was two?
We both sing on that one, and my vocals I can't sing for shit. Like so I mix them kind of very low.
He was mixing too low, and I didn't like that. And I was trying to tell him, look, you have to put it a tiny, you know, not much, but a tiny bit higher. And he wouldn't just accept this concept. And at some point, it doesn't think that I can actually go to the mixing table and, you know, and mess around the mixing table. So what I did is I put the vocals higher, a tiny bit too higher, right? And then, because I knew that Danny would say, oh no, they're too higher. So I put them higher than even I wanted. So, and then he went, oh no, this is too high, we have to put it down. And then he put it down to the level that I want. So so that's how I learned to, you know.
A healthy marriage built on deception and
Who knew we were going to start giving relationship marital tips here? but see, this comes up in conversation because I've interviewed several bands that the
But
artists
there's loads of
are together.
yeah,
So I've
loads.
always often wondered, like, how does that play a role and impact the relationship? And obviously, each couple is different. So
Well,
with this album, tell us some themes you were exploring.
the original kind of concept behind it, it sounds very pretentious, but like it was my in the past I was a mountain climber, and my lung collapsed about a decade ago, and I had to have corrective surgery, so I can't go to altitude anymore. So one of the things that I always wanted to do was to kind of write music around some of the things that I've seen in the like the beautiful vistas, and just these fantastic isolated remote places in the world, because some of the best times of my life have been in these places with headphones in, listening to it. Like I remember I was in Chile in the Atacama Desert in 2008 listening to Sigur Rós, and like that sticks with me forever. Been in the Himalayas, like listening to Stars of the Lid. You can't like. So what I wanted us to do was to kind of write an album that would hold up in a place like that, and have this kind of concept about, the artwork would utilize some of the photographs that I've taken.
Yeah, like
So
the cover of the album is
So the
one
cover-
of his pictures.
So that's Mont Blanc, from June 2008. That was the kind of overriding concept that we would use like these photographs, and we would have a kind of base camp to summit kind of thing. And
Yeah,
I was trying to, in the lyrics and the song themes, I was trying to basically appreciate what I've seen in these places, but acknowledge the kind of melancholy and sadness that I can't go back to that life again. But ultimately accept the fact that I've been lucky to live it. I'm not sure that we did end up cutting a lot of that out. I think there were like 16 or 17 songs in totality. We took 7 or 8 of them out, and kind of pared it down. So yeah, thanks, Vinky. Yeah, like the last expedition I was on was the Himalayas in 2009, and I remember it was an iPod, like a second generation iPod, and I remember having like a solar powered charger for this thing, like a battery pack and a solar powered charger, because I listened to, like, the expeditions they're so boring, like sometimes, in terms of action. Like you're climbing for maybe 2 hours a day, and then you're 20 hours at a camp. So there's a lot of kind of sitting around and acclimatizing. So there's a lot of headphones on, and kind of listening to music. It's hard to describe it without sounding a bit, because it's a very kind of personal thing, and like not many people climb. It can be kind of hard explaining it. But I read a book last year. Sorry, the 2021, is it? Yeah, when we were recording this album, I was reading a book called Ascent to Hell by an Irish guy called Fergus White, and it was about his experience on Everest. And a lot of mountaineering books are really tedious. They go into kind of too much technical detail. This guy absolutely 100% nailed the whole experience of being in this place, and the difficulty, and like putting one foot in front of the other, yet the joy of being there and being able to do it. And I stole a couple of phrases of his in this record. Like at one point he's talking about going across the Hindu Kush River. So in the Himalaya, in the trek to Everest Base Camp, you go across this massive bridge that's over this really high, over the really fast flowing river. And it's quite scary, even though what lies ahead is far scarier. But at one point he was talking about not looking down into the drop to eternity. And I thought, right,
there it is.
I'm stealing that one. And there were a couple of phrases I think of his that really resonated, and I think we kind of used them, altered them slightly, but used the concept behind them in some of the lyrics. But yeah, that was it. Like I always, since I had my accident in 2012, I always wanted to do something in my life, be it write an article or, publish a book of photos or something. And this is what it ended up being.
Well, it's a great one to leave. And, I was looking at the back here and all the people that you thanked and recognized.
Yeah, and I'm sure we've forgotten,
Yeah.
omitted loads of people, but we kind of genuinely really appreciate, like, when someone buys our album, it's like, oh, I want to go around to the house and shake their hand. We don't feel, entitled to, we hugely appreciate people listening. And like the people that we named are people who, like, Vinca has gone above and beyond in terms of promoting us. And
Ear Buzz. I mean, there's so many names on here. That's what's so extraordinary about music, right? And just feeling that wave of support by people that are in the industry. And I'm not in the industry at all. I don't even know how to play, anything. But it's just great to hear these stories. And I was alluding to that earlier about DKFM, that really family feel, that community that's been built up, and that tremendous solidarity.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Oh yeah, 100%. Like,
you don't know it until, like, you really start getting inside of it. You're like, Jesus, there's a lot of love in this community. So I wanted, before we kind of get to these albums that you have selected, where are you going next? What are you working on?
So we've done some new stuff. It's a little bit different. I started kind of tracking, I suppose, maybe last April, and it kind of coincided with a very sad family event. So as a consequence of that, I kind of find myself, I wanted to challenge myself in terms of just being able to throw myself into something. And that basically meant kind of taking a new approach to writing songs. So, like, some of the stuff that we're doing is a little bit more electronic. A lot of it has been kind of written on bass instead of on guitar, and a lot of them have two bass lines. So, in other words, we're completely ripping off New Order.
And Dive as well.
And Dive as well, yeah. No, it's weirdly upbeat and quite.
I think it's
poppy.
oh, well, not all the songs. I mean, there are some heavy songs that are coming together, which I love. But yeah, well, we hope we're gonna like it.
Yeah, I wouldn't be hugely offended or surprised if people didn't, because it is slightly different from the last two.
But it's going to be dedicated to one person.
Yeah, it's dedicated, like, for my father.
Yeah, tell us about that.
So my dad passed away last June. He hadn't been great for a number of years. He had pulmonary fibrosis, which is like an underlying lung condition. So Colin, I play the bass on most of them. I think Daniela did. Did you do Ataraxia? Yeah. But mostly myself at the moment. But yeah, my father, he took ill in June and was hospitalized, and I kind of had a pretty big sense of foreboding watching him being taken away in the ambulance. I kind of thought, this is this is really bad. But I think kind of we were sort of cautiously optimistic because he was kind of weathering, the storm. But unfortunately, in hospital, there was a lot of kind of false dawns, like he was doing okay, but then he got COVID, which, if you've got an underlying lung condition, is brutal. But he held on for a week with COVID, and the signs were quite encouraging. But then he got pneumonia.
Oh, God.
So that was the end, really. But the last day, I won't go into it, but it was horrific, and it's taken it'll take a while for the dust to settle. It's settling a little bit now, but my head wasn't in a great place really for a lot of last year, and I ended up, we kind of are conscious that sometimes we look like we don't care, because like I had to deactivate my Facebook account because I was finding I basically just needed to unplug from everything. There's a lot of kind of long walks with the dog in the mountains, kind of just trying to process what happened, kind of thing. And I was finding like being online or being on Reddit was I was just going down rabbit holes endlessly, kind of thing. So it sometimes looks like, because I set up the Facebook account and then I set up the Facebook account for Submotile, and then I deactivate my Facebook account. It looks, yeah, sorry, Vinka.
Yeah, so I mean, it's even promoting the album, the last one finest summit before the fall was not. We didn't do much, and
because it came out in the middle of all this.
Yeah, so it was a bit strange. We weren't really. I mean, we were of course excited, for whatever was happening, but at the same time, we weren't in the right place really mentally to be kind of doing this.
Yeah, but weirdly, the stuff that we're working on, you'd think it would sound like a complete, dark, depressed fest, but it's coming out oddly, and I think part of that is because I don't want to go back into a studio and do another. Let's do another one with like 900 guitar songs, with 18 vocal tracks and stuff like that. I want to learn how to do something different. And that's what we did. I dug out. I used to have a Roland groove box. It's like an MC 505, I think it's called. I dug that out and started using that as like a starting point. Even like having this kind of almost very new order, kind of early new order drum beat, and then I'd write a bass line over it, and we'd kind of go from there.
But there's also a bit of Black Rebel motorcycle.
Yeah. There's even one song that has this bass line that kind of sounds like something off Black Rebel Motorcycle's first album. So I don't know. I mean, it could. People might hear this going,
what are they doing? Oh my
God!
No.
But one thing is, like,
your fans are going to want you to push yourselves and challenge yourselves.
Yeah, I think that's the point. I think we're trying to do something. We're trying to evolve in some way, and I think the new music, the new stuff, we are hoping that in the end we're gonna sound more. Maybe polished, a bit more polished, I would say.
A bit cleaner, I think. Yeah.
Cleaner, more still, with the same, let's say, power that at the other albums, because that's something that I think belongs a bit to the band, right? I think it's very hard. I mean, a song like Blood Loss, it's an exception, that song, right?
Thank you, Heather. Sorry to saw you.
But usually, those powerful, songs, that sound is going to be even in the new stuff that we are doing. That's for sure. But hopefully a bit more, I don't know, transparent. I think. Cleaner, like polished.
When you start mixing music for yourself and you listen to other people's, you kind of start hearing it a bit differently.
Yeah.
Like something like Loveless, you read people comment about Loveless, going, "Oh, it's got like 800 guitars going on at the set." It doesn't. It has one in most tracks, sometimes two. It's just like Kevin Shields is a genius and really knows how to assemble. His songcraft is fantastic. Like you listen to something like Dive, to see there's never more than kind of four things going on. So we're kind of taking the kind of less is maybe more approach this time. And I think part of that is, a couple of years ago, I didn't really know how to write a song properly. So it was like, let's just stick everything, throw everything at it and see what sticks kind of thing. And I think when my father passed away, I kind of made a concerted effort to throw myself into kind of learning how to do things a bit better, as a distraction, really. So it was only ever going to be for him, this thing. And like, sometimes it sounds a bit weird, but you kind of, I feel, would he like this kind of thing? And like, I feel like he's kind of listening. And like when we moved into this house 3 years ago, my aunt, we were both extremely close to, she passed away as well. So we named the studio after her. And I have outside in the hallway, I have a photo of her. And it's always, you kind of feel that herself and my dad are like looking over.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
and that fuels inspiration, and that creates stories. And I mean, it's all, well, we could go on the whole conversation there, but I from what I'm hearing, is just, I'm not saying any of it was easy. Of course not. Losing a parent it is one of the most difficult things I've ever gone through, and everyone handles it differently. And I just love the fact that you're sharing this with us right now. And we're going to transition into some vinyl that I would love for you to showcase. And
yeah.
So everyone watching, I've asked Daniela and Michael to share some albums that really have inspired them along the way. So this is where we're at, and then we're going to do the test pressing and giveaway, and then we'll call it a day.
I think Daniela's going to talk more about like contemporary stuff that she's.
Yeah. And your album
which I probably mentioned already on this, but yeah.
Daniela.
One of my favorite post-rock band is Caspian, and this is the album that I really love. Is On Circle, I think. Can you see it properly? Yeah, there.
Yes.
And it's a fantastic album. I think it's 2020 was released. And there is one song in that album, Flower of Lights, that I wish I could have written. I love that song. And I'd love to even sing, because, it's only instrumental, that song. But I'd love to sing on that song as well. And it's one absolutely masterpiece for me. So I love the band. I think they do. I love everything what they do, but this album in particular, I think it's fantastic, and I'd love to sing them live. Actually, I've never seen a gig from them, so that's one. I'd love to mention this one because this vinyl was released this year, and is one of the best. I think it was. I'll take the plastic off. Is Letting Up, Despite Great Falls, the last album. And these guys are from Austin, and I really, really like their stuff. This is again, one of example of a kind of a simple way of writing a song and coming up with something that is quite simple, but it's so good. This album is fantastic, and again, I'd love to see them live, and I love the fact that they are from Austin, because I have a particular feeling like kind of connection with the city. And so
Daniela lives in Austin.
Oh, I was going to say, what's your affinity? I got it. Makes sense now.
Yeah, I lived in Austin and I have a great memories of it. And then something that has always been like I always I think there was one post from Greg Peters, I think recently, well, a few months ago, that he was asking what are the five how can you summarize all the styles, musical styles that they are influencing you, or they have influenced you. And I love that post. And one of, in my case, it's a Massive Attack album, Heligoland. This is a fantastic album. I love all their stuff. I mean, the most common, but from this album, there is specifically, Paradise Circus. That is my favorite song, above all. And you want to go ahead?
Yeah, there was another one you were going to mention, Daniel Avery and Alessandro Cortini. Yeah, he was Alessandro was the keyboard player he was the touring keyboard player in Nine Inch Nails a couple of maybe a decade ago or something. But he's a guy who really knows his way around the studio. And Daniel Avery is he's kind of tipped to be like the next Aphex Twin. This stuff is phenomenal. And the two of them together. Are you a fan?
Oh, huge fan.
Yeah.
My heart leapt. Did you see it fly out of me when you said that?
It's what I love about Daniel is like Daniel loves Loveless as much as he loves like the first Orbital album. Like he's got such great taste. But the two of them together produce this beautiful ambient album. Really worth checking out. Mine are a bit more boring. I've probably covered this already, but when I was 12 or 13, I heard Freak Scene by Dinosaur Jr. and it's still one of my that song to me just has everything that a guitar song should have. And I remember seeing the video on UK television. There was a program on BBC, I think, actually called Snub, and they played the video for Freak Scene, and it was clearly done on a fairly small budget, but it just looked so cool. It was like Jay Mascis and Lou Barlow and Murph playing in like a garden, and they just looked like the most mysterious, interesting creatures. Oh God, always a pleasure hearing your own voice. Jesus. But that song Freak Scene, it's like even to play it on an acoustic guitar, it's wonderfully melodic. But the lyrics and Jay's delivery and the way it stops and it's like, don't let me fuck up, will you? And then it just crashes back in, and every time. And I must have heard it 40,000 times at this stage, and it still gets me. So I went out and I bought that album. When I was Bug, when I was basically a kid, and it's still. I know, like Jay himself doesn't particularly like this. I think because it was recorded under kind of less than ideal conditions. I think the band was kind of falling apart. But to me, it's their best, and that's saying a lot. This one I stole from my sister. There's a lot of alliteration in this sentence. So Sonic Youth, still, probably in my top three. I had an out-of-body experience seeing them when I was 15. This was the show that my sister brought me to, where Nirvana opened, and as good as Nirvana were, even though there was, nobody knew who they were at the time, Sonic Youth completely blew them off the stage. They just looked so cool. I was up on the balcony. There was no way I was going near the mosh pit because I would have been completely discombobulated. So yeah, I was on the balcony looking at like Thurston Moore, Lee Ronaldo, Kim Gordon, Steve Shelley. They just looked like aliens from another planet. And they opened with the first song of this record, Schizophrenia, with just Steve Shelley's drum beat, and the song just builds and builds and builds, and it has this beautiful hidden melody as well. it uses like an open drone tuning, like Thurston Moore. Maybe history's not been as kind to him in the last 15 years, but back then to me he was a god. And whatever whatever he looks like these days, but he knew how to be inventive on the guitar, as did Lee Ronaldo. So they are Sonic Youth they're an all-time favorite, and it was kind of shitty the way what happened at the end. This one may be a bit of an unusual choice, the Orb. This came out in, was it 91? And it still sounds like it could have been released like yesterday. I love electronic music as well, and I particularly love electronic music that kind of takes you on a journey, and there's no better electronic band than the Orb for doing that. And in particular, that song, Huge Ever-Growing Pulsating Brain, which is the last song on that album, it's like 20 minutes long. That song, I absolutely think it. I like Orbital. I think they've aged a bit poorly. They kind of sound a bit dated, whereas the Orb still sound like the future to me. I've been fortunate enough to see both of them live,
nice.
And the Orb, it's an experience, whereas Orbital was just a rave. But yeah, I'm really glad that they're still much more creative. Exactly. Really glad that they're still going. And like Alex from the Orb, I think was 32 when that record came out.
Very young.
So he's now like well into his 60s. So it's great that they're still going.
I think he also did a side project that came out last year.
Sedibus.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's really good. I think Neil Burkdahl, recommended that one to me, and that was really good.
Leave it up to Neil.
No, Vicky, ages, forget it. You're only as young as you feel. But yeah, like the Orb, it's probably a kind of unusual choice for somebody who's in a kind of shoegaze thing. But what we're trying to do is trying to do the whole journey with sound kind of thing, to an extent. I think they were masters of it, particularly the stuff that they did in the 90s.
Yeah. Could you mind if one of you could put those albums in the chat box so people can
go
back to it? Yeah, we could sit here and talk albums all day. I would love to do that. Speaking of an album, I believe you have a test pressing.
Yes.
Yes, we have.
So how can someone who's watching get a hold of this test pressing? What is the test pressing of, please?
So what we were going to do was ask a question. Now, we'll take your steer on this, because as you've no doubt Clean, this is kind of new to us as well. We've never really done anything like this, but we were going to ask a question, and I guess the first person who answered correctly in the comment box gets a copy of it. And we'll sign it and specifically for whoever wins it. What do you think of that approach?
I love that approach. So, Heather, if you're watching, you don't have to worry about knowing hardcore trivia about from the 80s. So sometimes I'll do like this trivia stuff. This is a little silly, but it's whatever. So I think this sounds good. So do you want me to ask the question, and the first person that types in the correct answer gets that test pressing?
Yeah.
Okay.
What do you think?
Yeah.
Sounds
okay.
good.
Now,
yeah.
Because I'm a teacher, are we counting spelling, capitalization?
It depends on how. Yeah, I'm not a grammar Nazi now, but like it depends in certain circumstances, I suppose. Could be. No, I don't. I think given that speed has to be of the essence, we can forego the strictness of the rules, I think.
Okay, here is the question, everyone. Get your little fingers ready to dance on the keyboard. Okay, here we go. And I believe this was the question. So correct me if I'm wrong. All right, here we go. What? Oh, wait. They can use any source of help, right? Any help.
But which chart are we checking?
Check. That's a good question because there's a delay. I would check the one that we're on right now on StreamYard.
Okay.
This is very intense.
It's like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire?
Okay, everyone, here we go. What is the name of Submotile's EP that came out in 2018? Okay, go. Get those fingers ready to answer. What is the name of Submotile's EP?
We don't even know that one.
I was gonna say, do you
I was
remember?
about to say, I have to check it on Spotify.
I see a winner.
Good question. Nobody
I saw a winner. I saw.
Did you see it?
I saw Frank get it first.
Frank Coyle.
Yes.
Oh, good man, Frank.
I won't cheat on Bandcamp. I'm sure I have it though. Yeah. Yeah, so Frank's came up first and then Collins.
Okay.
So yes, we are losing the light. We're losing the light.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
We're correct on that, right?
Yeah.
So I'll let you handle the transaction with Frank.
Frank, mail your. You have my Gmail, so send your current address to Gmail because I'm not on Facebook at the moment, and I'll get it. We'll get it in the mail on Monday or Tuesday for you.
You know,
we can give it to Colin.
We'll give it to Colin. Is it?
Yeah, we have another test.
Yeah,
we can give it away. Yeah,
we do.
What did you say? I lost you.
We'll Colin will get you one as well.
Okay, great. Oh, Vinka says, is a consolation prize a free maid for her second question? Oh. And then Frank says, to be honest, I was just on Bandcamp about to buy this. Love it. This has been a blast. And I want to thank both of you. And I know I reached out to a time. I know things were not so smooth sailing. So I just want to say thank you for allowing me to do this with you. This has been great. And real quickly, just in case people hopped on just a little bit after you said it, what's coming down the pipe in 2023?
We probably won't be putting out anything in 2023. What we want to do is we have an album written. We want to really take our time with it. Really take our time. I think the last one with Shelf Life, the record label, we were really late in delivering it, and that meant, like, particularly with the issues that we had with like Drop to Eternity, it meant it was quite stressful trying to get it finished for them. So this time we want to really just take as long as it takes. And also, I don't want people to be saying, "Oh no, these guys again with another album." So we want to leave it on.
You're not King Gizzard. I wouldn't worry about it.
Yeah, but I mean, even 1 a year is kind of enough. So like this is one we really want to record it, leave it to make sure that we're happy with it, and then come back. So I would say probably the summer of 24.
Okay.
We might put out
maybe a bit earlier.
Yeah.
I mean, he always is trying to be negative about, but
I'm not trying to be. I'm trying to be realistic, and
he always does that. But no, then in the end, when what happens, William, is that in the end we are happy about what we put together, right? When the album is finished, and then we can't wait to put it out, So that's usually what happens. So no, I think probably I think 2024 for sure.
but we might do an EP or something, or
Yeah.
a single or two before. Maybe one of the more kind of different flavored songs. Actually, in that video
Oh yeah,
that we used,
for the promoting this event, there is
that's one of them.
there's a song from the new.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's one of the tracks, and actually, it's probably one of my favorite ones, I think.
Well, have you been to San Francisco?
I have, and I
Daniela
love
has,
it.
yeah.
I have.
Well, you're welcome to come back anytime, do a tour.
Oh, we would love to play live.
Yeah.
We would love to. Yeah.
Yeah. No, this has been really special, and you have a really nice following of people on here, and then just probably all over the world. I'm sure you get really nice compliments from people that have really embraced your work, and I'm thankful that I've had the opportunity to learn more about you two as artists and just as people. So thank you so much, and thank you everyone for tuning in. My name is William, aka W. Listening, thank you for tuning into High Arts on the. And so tomorrow, just to let everyone know, I'm going to be speaking with Simon Leclerc, another DKFM,
Oh,
and he's gonna share with his vinyl picks. That we're gonna start this kind of new show that we've come up with. So we'll see where that goes, and then we have some great interviews coming up at the end of January and February. So keep an eye out for that, and keep listening to great music and appreciating the arts. It's always a good thing. Daniela, Michael, thank you so much. Everyone, take care.
Thanks a million. Thanks for listening to us.
Yeah, absolutely. Take care.
Thanks a lot.